Have you ever just, stared at a calendar and wondered about a single date? Not your birthday, not a holiday, just a random day. What's its story? Well, today we're doing exactly that. We're going to take one day, April 15th, and peel back all the layers. And trust me, there's a wild story under there, one that stretches back 2,000 years. So let's get into it.
So, here's the big question we're tackling today. What is it about April 15th? Why is it so spiritually dynamic? And the answer isn't just one thing. It's this incredible mashup of floating holidays, ancient saints, and some really pivotal moments in history, all landing on the same spot on the calendar.
Okay, so first things first, you have to understand that this day is kind of a chameleon. The entire vibe of April 15th can totally change from one year to the next, and that's because its meaning is completely tied to when Easter happens to fall.
And that brings us to a really important idea, the Paschal Triduum. These are the three most sacred, most intense days of the entire Christian year. It's the whole climax of the story. And because Easter moves around, April 15th often lands smack dab in the middle of this period. We're talking about the absolute heart of the faith.
And this is where it gets really fascinating. Check out the split personality. If April 15th is Good Friday, it's this incredibly somber day of fasting and reflecting on the crucifixion. But if it lands on Holy Saturday, the whole mood shifts. It becomes a day of quiet, almost silent waiting. It's that breath held between the sorrow of Friday and the absolute joy of Sunday morning. See, that's what we mean by dynamic.
So that's the liturgical calendar stuff. But to find the very first stories carved into this date, we've got to get in a time machine and go all the way back. I'm talking the 1st century, right in the shadow of the apostles themselves.
I want you to meet Saints Basilissa and Anastasia. Now, these women weren't just early believers. They were actually converts of Peter and Paul, and they were living under the thumb of the infamous Emperor Nero. Their act of defiance, the thing that got them killed, it was giving a proper Christian burial to other martyrs. Think about that. Their crime was an act of dignity and love in the face of terror. Their story, and others from Paul's circle, gives April 15th this foundational layer of pure courage.
So you have that 1st century seed of martyrdom. And from there, the significance of this date just grows. It starts popping up everywhere, becoming this landmark for saints, major church councils, even emperors, all through the Middle Ages.
And wow, this timeline really puts it in perspective. Just look at the historical jumps we're making. From the Roman Empire, we leap to 7th century France, then to a hugely important church council in 769, and then boom, all the way to 1191 for the coronation of a Holy Roman Emperor. All of these major events happened on April 15th.
Okay, I have to pull one of these stories out from the timeline because it's just too good. Let's talk about Saint Hanna. Her feast day? You guessed it, April 15th. So Saint Hanna was a noblewoman. She had it made, could have lived a life of total comfort, but instead she gets this amazing nickname, the Holy Washerwoman. Why? Because she dedicated her life to doing laundry for her poor neighbors. It was this incredible act of humility, of service, that was so radical for the time it made her a saint.
So you might be thinking, if she's so great, how come I've never heard of her? And that brings us back to that whole shifting identity we talked about. There's a rule in the church calendar. When a saint's day, like Hanna's, lands on a really big day like Good Friday, the more solemn day always wins. Good Friday takes precedence. It perfectly explains why this date feels so different year to year.
All right, let's fast forward to our time. You might be thinking this is all just ancient history, right? Well, not exactly. Those threads from way back when are still woven right into the faith today. Today, April 15th is still a major focal point, especially when it's part of Holy Week. But its echoes are there in other ways too. Take Blessed Caesar de Bus, whose feast day is also April 15th. He was from 17th century France and dedicated his whole life to teaching the faith to regular families. You can draw a straight line from the radical, humble charity of St. Hanna to the humble service of this man. The past is still very much alive.
So we've just time traveled across 2,000 years. Why does it matter? Why go so deep on one single day? Because looking at April 15th is like looking through a microscope at the story of faith itself. And here's the real takeaway. One single date on a calendar can hold everything. It holds the raw sacrifice of the first martyrs, the quiet charity of saints, the grand power of empires and councils, and the steady, personal devotion of believers today. It's all there,
layered on top of each other.
And that really just leaves us with one final thought. We just uncovered this incredible, multi-layered story for one single day. It kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other hidden histories, what forgotten stories of courage and faith are just sitting there, waiting to be discovered on your own calendar?